And this is also something that came up quite a bit this current week, which would be last week for you guys, and I thought was worth talking about. And that's, what are the 3 unconscious blocks to being happy in love? So that means both, the blocks to finding love. That also means the blocks to keeping love and to growing love. So what I found in working with people essentially over 18 years at this point, so thousands and thousands of hours, is that there's 3 themes that come back that haunt love relationships. And either we end up always in the wrong relationship, or our relationships don't last, we sabotage them, or we can't find a relationship and end up chronically single, or we are in a relationship and it's overall a good relationship, but we can't quite seem to grow in there, we can't quite seem to settle. So the first unconscious block to love is more an internal at war with myself block, and that's the kind of some kind of self-doubt, some kind of unworthiness, some kind of not good enough. I'm unworthy of love, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not young enough, you see it too, I'm too smart, not smart enough, too rich, not rich enough, whatever it may be. In some way, shape, or form, an unconscious inner belief that there's something wrong with me. And because I believe that there's something wrong with me, I can't even contemplate or imagine that somebody else would want me, that somebody else would love me, and that I could actually grow and be happy in that. So in some way, shape, or form, we're defended and armored towards love because we don't trust and believe in ourselves. So that's that's a difficult aspect to work with. When I work with people on that, there's usually a lot of childhood wounds that are showing up in this kind of belief system, and oftentimes just talking about it is not always enough. This is where a lot of energy psychotherapy works well in essentially dissolving the blocks and seeing through to their falseness from a number of different directions. So that's block 1. Block 1 is, there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough, and so because of that I can't let love in, and I can't settle in love because I don't think I deserve it in some way, shape, or form. Block number 2 is also an inner block, but, well, I suppose they're all inner blocks actually, now that I think about it. But block number 2 is geared towards the outside world. So where the first one is there's something wrong with me, block number 2 is there's something wrong with the world out there. It's not safe. And that shows up oftentimes in a fear of being hurt, a fear of being betrayed, oftentimes a fear of being abandoned. And it's often you can see themes of that in the past, so either in past relationships or in childhood, either by a parental figure. And you can also sometimes see aspect of that in ancestry. So it could literally be just my dad left and abandoned my mom, but it could also be that there's a pattern in ancestry of women raising children alone, or of women leaving and the man being left alone, or something like that. That kind of just trickles down from generations to generations. And so the sense of, it's not safe to open myself, it's not safe to allow people in, to allow love in, creates a different kind of armoring and defendedness that one doesn't allow us to really. The self-sabotaging aspect of that is we pick humans to be in relationships with that will create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we're, these people are the ones who are also always in relationships with the wrong people, with non-committal people, with people who are not going to be able to actually stay in the relationship and honor them in the way that they would like. So there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The other aspect of that is, I think, we pick the wrong people in an effort to not have to actually open up. This kind of block keeps people from being able to relax in their current relationship. They can't ever quite trust their partner. There can be a jealousy in there. There can be always assuming the worst. There could be being very defensive and reactive during fights, or even throwing the I'm out of here, or having that 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door type of reaction to being in relationship. Essentially, I'm always looking to protect myself and look for the signs of being betrayed, hurt, or abandoned so that I can just get out. So block number 1 is, there's something wrong with me, so I can't settle and trust and be in relationship, because why would anyone want to be with me? Block number 2 is, there's something wrong with the world or with others, so I can't actually quite settle down and feel safe in relationship. And then block number 3 is a different kind of inner challenge, and that's the cost of love. So maybe I think I'm just fine. I think the world is just fine and love is great. But I'm afraid of what it's going to cost me to open my life up to love. And so that cost can show up in all sorts of ways. A cost of my freedom. I really don't want to have to answer to somebody else. So freedom, independence. I've worked too hard to let somebody else really benefit from everything I've done, whether that's all the internal work I've done or even the financial outward success. You can also see that sometimes with people who have, maybe children. So then it's like, I don't want to open myself up to love because I'll have less to give to something else, whether that something else is a child, whether that something else is an elderly parent, whether that something else is a job that's very demanding, or even a passion, something that they're passionate about and that they spend a lot of time doing. This type of block also has quite a bit to do about control. These tend to be people who really like to manage their lives and their environment, and the moment that you allow love in, it's messy. It's messy emotionally, it's messy in terms of our life. You have to create time, space. You're dealing with literally somebody else's mess, physically, emotionally, and otherwise. So there's a power thing in here, there's a control thing in here, and we simply don't want to lose ourselves. We don't want to lose our lives the way we know it. It's kind of like, yeah, I don't want to be alone, or I don't want to be single, or I don't want to not be able to commit, and yet at least this is the devil I know. Like, I'm feeling a little lonely, I'm feeling a little disconnected, but at least I'm in control, I'm empowered in my own life. So, these are the 3 blocks. All of us have oftentimes little touch of them here and there, a few of them. And one of them tends to be more in the front and center than another. But I can definitely see how all 3 of those have shown up in my life and in my relationships at some point or another. So in the block number 3 about not wanting to give up our lives and the cost of love, oftentimes that is also part of the self-sabotage. Either we're chronically single, there's literally no space for us to invite another into our life, so we just energetically we're blocked. Or same thing, we are in relationships with people with whom it will not work. Or we are in a relationship that's working, but we can't seem to commit, we can't seem to settle, we can't seem to open our life up to the other, and they're complaining that they feel disconnected. There's something missing in the connection because we don't want to be vulnerable, we don't want to be open, we don't want to let go of control of ourselves and our lives. So those are the 3 blocks, and Most of them, we can, just being aware that you have that block, like if you recognize yourself in one or a couple of them, then you can start looking for it. Oh, am I doing that? Like, am I creating, a blockage and armoring? Am I shutting down love in some ways? Am I pushing my partner away in some ways? And if I'm pushing them away, which wound, which block has been triggered here? And just that in and of itself is starting to unwind the knot, is starting to let go of some of these patterns. And then the other, I think there's some really skilled therapists out there that can help people work through those. I will tell you that I find that there's only, with unconscious blockages that way, especially if there's some past wound, past trauma, ancestral patterns and things like that, oftentimes I think that just talk is not enough. Like, just talking to somebody about them is not enough. It requires some kind of deep, intuitive, energetic unwinding and dissolving and clearing and repairing of something that's deep within us that we don't quite have access to with our conscious mind. And of course, I do that work with people. Anyways, I hope that's useful. Have a lovely week. Bye.